pictured here is a little man who is characteristic and symbol of Bauhaus in the sense that he's the mascot. He has very simple geometric figures of which he is composed from, and he embodies the motto that a new guild of craftsmen is to be formed without the class distinctions that come from typical artists. Pictured here is Walter Gropius, who was in charge of the Bauhaus from 1919 to 1928 at its Weimar, Germany location. He was an architect, and his style was to be functional, cheap, and consistent with mass production. He wanted to end up with products that were functional with artistic merit, but could be mass produced. This is Hannes Meyer. He was the second director of the Bauhaus during its years in Dessau, Germany, through 1928 through 1930. And he had no patience for the aesthetic program as a radical functionalist, and he had developed a new view on architecture that was to view architecture as socially functional only, not aesthetic. This is Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, who was the third and final director of the Bauhaus in its Berlin years from 1930 through 1933, and he housed the school and a derelict facility which he funded independently. This is a model of the curriculum for the Bauhaus developed by Walter Gropius. As you can see, there's the preliminary basic course on the outskirts, which readies you for your workshop, which you pick secondary, and then the apprenticeship at the center of the curriculum. Johannes Itten is pictured here, and he helped develop the preliminary course with Walter Gropius, and he used his insight developed from the artistic avant-garde as well as the progressive educational movement. And he was very influential in the sense that he inspired the pushing of creative boundaries rather than to copy old artistic works as was customary at the time. His classes typically began with untypical sort of exercises in concentration, rhythm, and breathing, which were to carry into the students' works. He assigned material studies and contrast studies which the students independently evaluated as well. Throughout the Bauhaus's existence, they had non-art subjects which were taught because they were a vocational school, so they wanted to fully encompass and sort of prepare the students for everything they would encounter in their jobs, which is just art stuff. Here you can see Ludwig teaching a math class. This is a work of Peter Behrens, who was an industrial designer who was partnered with Walter Gropius before his time at the Bauhaus. And he developed standardized parts, consumer products, streamlined designs for his corporation, and he worked for the German company AEG Electrical. He also developed the modernist icon, which is the AEG turbine factory. And he did this with a sense of modernism, which later transferred to the Bauhaus through Gropius. And modernism develops radically simplified forms, rationality, functionality, and an idea that mass production is reconcilable with the artistic spirit. Pictured here is some of the early architectural output by the Bauhaus, which was one and the same with the school, but the school didn't actually have an architecture program until later, so it was all by Gropius and his co-worker Adolf Meyer. These are two chairs produced by Marcel Breuer. Furniture design was one of the major lasting design impacts left with us from the Bauhaus, and they embodied the non-typical, not Ford kind of chair, not Ford-like chair design with the cantilever chair here and the Vasily chair. These are two other designs by Marcel Breuer himself, and you can see how they embody modernistic geometric styling with angular lines. This is called the table with removable mirrors, and this is a kitchen, both designed in 1923. The most profitable part of the Bauhaus, that's really a tangible thing that came out of it, was its wallpaper designs. They debuted in the year 1930 with 14 different designs characterized by light grid and dot patterns and friendly light colors. And it was a 145-page book catalog there. And this is the Bauhaus Archive Museum in Berlin, where a majority of the notable works and art that came out of the institution are held today. You can go visit there and check out their collection, which contains architecture models, teaching models, photos, just works of art furniture, everything that's notable that came out of the Bauhaus is reproduced or contained there. And these are my works then.
That slider down at the bottom will probably let us see a little more, the one right across the bottom there. Or you can make it just a little smaller so that we can see the main slides.
Overall, I think you did very good. You knew your information and it flowed very well. Even if the photo went on, you continued what you were saying. And I really didn't think you needed note cards, so it was good.
I think you had a really good mix of like actual information about each individual character, member of the Bauhaus, and some of their overall influence on design. And I thought you had a really good balance between the pictures and layout of some of the pictures. Very good use of space.
I think you probably could use bigger images since they are pretty small and there's a lot of white space around them. But they're good images otherwise.
Going off that, I like how you put more than one image on a slide because I think they went well together, especially with the historical pictures. It did give us more to look at, and you made points to each of them as you were going on your slide. So I think it was good that there's more than one image. They could have been a little bigger though.
Okay. I'm going to jump in there because I want to say something specifically about this. Basically, I don't think you gain a lot by putting more than one image on slides. But here we have something that, and as a matter of fact, I'm sure some of these would not have blown up very well, so it's probably wise not to blow them up. But we also have something that's happening here, which is the effect of a scrapbook. Anybody else get that feel as you go through? There was a consistency of it. The slides weren't too crowded. There were a couple that maybe I would think could be compositionally a little better. But, you know, it had a unity to it because it did have that scrapbook quality. It was almost like someone had taken a tour of history. You know, like you went on a voyage, instead of going on a geographic voyage, you go through a voyage on time, and you were showing us the scrapbook. And I thought that was a unity there that was very, very good. Other questions and comments?
I like it explained everything really well, and it really seemed like you knew the topic, and you made me understand the topic really well.
The one thing that I find a shortcoming here is I wish you had put some work of your own in as the sense of, you know, something that you had either found in your environment that had a Bauhaus feel to it and done a photograph of it, or if you had ever done anything like a poster that had that, you know, anything that you could use from your own there, because that makes for a stronger presentation for several reasons. But one of the reasons that makes for a stronger presentation is that it makes certain that we're not going to have stuff that have all been shown and done before. And yet you managed to do that without having to go to your own work. There were several things that surprised me. I don't think I've ever had anybody bother about the wallpaper before. And you're right, it's one of the more lasting things, you know, that you see in terms of influence. And I'm sorry, excuse me right now, but there was something else that no one doing the Bauhaus had ever thought to put on there before. So I did think that, you know, you really searched out and balanced the ideas that you represented there. I think, was it Jake? Somebody else had a hand up here? Who had a hand up? We saw another one go up for a moment.
Some of the images, like the second one with the man standing next to the building, I don't know if is that like it kind of, I don't know if it helps or it kind of detracts. It kind of like blurs into the background with the white. It's kind of like I don't know, it just, it looks kind of good, but it's, I don't know whether it's good or bad, it's kind of like the version with the light.
Yeah, he's actually standing next to a model of Chicago Tribune building, which was one of the notable designs. It didn't win, but I thought that was a good way of how to characterize him as an architect.
I think that this is the, we can just a little bit, by the fact that you have that color in the front that diminishes that other photo, a little color up on the upper right that diminishes the power of the photo there. It might have been better just to have the photo of him, you know, a little bit larger if it would enlarge. But that's a very good photo. And the interesting thing is that it suggests something that could be done in a number of types of presentations, which is that you could use a less powerful, but if you imagine for a moment that we could separate that photograph into its foreground and the background of the model, that you could put a photograph of a person across something that's representative of him. I haven't seen that yet. And I think some of you, you know, probably, this is an actual photograph of him with a model, but you need to think in terms of the more creative ways you can show two things at once on a presentation slide like that. Because as you go out and have to make presentations to sell your ideas, whether it's in-house or out to clients when you're designers, they want to see your creativity on display too, and you will, I'm sure, more and more have the limitations, if not literally of Pecha Kucha, of something very similar in making presentations of your ideas. Good job overall. I think you're next, Jake.